Hi everyone, welcome to The Racer's Edge live from London. This is my chance to kind of say thank you to everybody who's been supporting this channel for a lot of years now, and equally hopefully to put a little bit of time in when we're all suffering in this world, and particularly a big shout out right now to everybody, as they say on the front line, everybody who's out there doing what they can to try and make the situation a little bit easier. It's really, really tough for everybody. I mean, who am I to speak about it being tough? I'm very lucky, but I know how many people are suffering right now. So at the absolute outset, I just want to say a big thanks to all of you. So the idea here is basically just to chat about the sport we love, and you can ask me some questions if you can see the live chat panel there. Equally, I'll be rambling on in my usual way about lots of things. I've had one question already from Steve Simmons, and his question, well, it's a double-barreled one really. It's about the 21 tech regs and what we think about those now being delayed through to perhaps 22, and equally about why the Formula One teams aren't perhaps opening their doors a bit now and having lots of CCTV pictures, GoPro pictures mounted in good points in all the factories, so that we can actually enjoy Formula One still kind of as it's happening, the break aside, until we go racing again. And I think both of those are good points. And the first one about the tech regs, I mean, putting aside all the terrible things that are going on with the virus, putting all that to one side, I'm personally quite chuffed that the regulations have been put on hold or will be put on hold, because I don't really rate them anyway. The 21 regs for me, it's a bit of a compromise car. I think 175 for a budget cap is ludicrous, and I don't think it's sending the right messages out there. I think it might help you if you're out there on Wall Street trying to sell Formula One, and you can say, we have a budget cap now, and you might get people's attention. But as I said, the last video I did from Melbourne, for me, there are much greater problems that Formula One's not addressing. And one of those, of course, is the huge carbon footprint we have around the world in order to race at all these different countries. And that's been part of Formula One's DNA for so many years now. And I put forward the idea in Melbourne that we should perhaps look at holding the World Championship at maybe only 2 or 3 circuits in various parts of the world, and having 4 or 5 races at each track, not necessarily in sequence, but nonetheless try to make things a little bit more logical in terms of where we're going in the future, because I don't think it's sustainable actually to be going to 22 different countries throughout the year, every year, with that sort of carbon footprint. Having said all of that, I'm a great believer also in trying to reduce costs much more in Formula One. And whilst I know we've still got to have the top teams, the Ferraris, the Mercedes, the Red Bulls, if you want to be specific, I think there should be a big option for the midfield to go the Dallara route. I've said this before, and I still believe it today. I think there should be a sort of template Formula One car that we should be able to have available to anybody that wants to buy it and develop it. What engine that would have, that's obviously up for discussion. Maybe it could be a Ferrari engine. That would really keep Ferrari happy for the next million years. Equally, it could be a Cosworth, whatever. But I do think that it would be a massive help if we went down that route of having something like a Dallara chassis which people can get hold of and then develop at much less cost, I think, than currently having to design and build your own car, in some cases, just to be at the back of the grid. I think that's ludicrous. And I say all that because I think Formula One loves to say that it has its own technological unique selling point. That is what makes Formula One unique in the world, motorsport certainly, and probably unique in a number of other engineering fields as well, all these prototype companies all around the world. But I don't think Formula One does a very good job of allowing us to sell that technology. The doors are shut, the bodyguards are on the front of the garage, the back of the garage. You try to get any sort of detailed stuff, and it's impossible. So if they don't want us to sell the technology, I say us, I'm talking about the media, what is the point of having it? Massively expensive. And if we can't really get down to the nitty gritty, let's call it quits and we'll look after the top teams. They can still what they do, but let's try and lift the midfield by making it much cheaper to go racing. And there are plenty of race teams out there that could run a really good Dallara Formula One operation. I'm referring, of course, to F2, F3 teams out there as well. So that's one thing. And I hope now with this delay, this enforced delay, that we do look again 100% at where we're going with the Formula One regulations. I don't think a sort of compromise car version of what we have now with a few modifications, excuse me, which are a little bit better, but generally speaking, sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Generally speaking, is just a development of where we are now. I think that is not the way to go. That's my personal opinion. As for cameras in the factories right now, absolutely. You know, I've been saying, I don't know for how many years now, that there's not a lot wrong with Formula One that really, really good inside coverage wouldn't put right, whether it's filming drivers on the road, driving to the track in the morning, going home at night, at the hotel, teams at dinner, debriefs, drivers' briefings before the race, all that should be out there. I know the Netflix thing has kind of started to show that that does work and prove my point, but that is fairly stage managed, and it's also not attainable for everybody. I think we need to have it out there for the public at large. I should have bought a glass of water, but I didn't. Anyway, that's so I'd love to see that. I don't think it'll happen because the teams are still absolutely crazy about secrecy, and why? I don't understand that, to me. And just to, you made this point in the past, but excuse me for making it again. Ayrton Senna, Jackie Stewart, Mario Andretti, doesn't matter who it was, Colin Chapman. If you spent a lot of time waiting for them for the right moment at any given weekend, you could ask them whatever questions you like about the technology or about the art of driving, and they would answer it, for the simple reason that motor racing is really complicated. It's so complicated that nobody knows why they're winning, let alone why they're losing. And they felt that the more the media, people like me, I guess, knew about what was going on, the better job we would do reporting the sport. And that doesn't happen today. We're given sort of, you know, spoon-fed press releases by the teams and the drivers. And I think in the belief that we're just going to cut and paste that and put it on. I'm sure some people do, but certainly that doesn't answer any of the questions that I want to ask. And I never, ever will get used to a team when I ask them, or when they want to tell us what happened, why a car stopped on the track. I'll never get used to them saying it was a technical problem. Yeah, duh. Anyway, that's that. Thanks, Steve, for those. I think I'd like to, we got a few questions coming in. Before we get on to those, a couple of other things about what people are doing at the moment. I was talking to my buddy, Johnny Williams, Frank's son, this morning, saying, what have you been up to, Johnny? And he said, oh, I've been reading John Barnard's book. Great stuff. You know, this is an opportunity, trying to be positive about everything that's happening. This is an opportunity to do things like that, to read quite big technical books and, you know, to enjoy them. Adrian Newey's book, if you haven't seen it, haven't read it, get into that as well. Lots, in fact, there are so many great motor racing books out there that it's almost impossible, I think, to make a choice. And I try not to go near too many of those bookshops at various Goodwoods these days because I know how much money I'm going to spend. There's just endless number of books, which is amazing, really, when you think about it, because books don't actually make a lot of money these days. A lot of people prefer to watch video, which is good, of course. Equally, books are still wonderful things. And I was talking to Howden Ganley just a while ago and about his book. He's just about sold out, hasn't made a fortune on it, but fair enough. You know, he did a book and it's a good book. It's a good read. Howden, of course, just as an aside there, Howden's got a great gig going. It's obviously ground to a halt now, but every European winter, New Zealand summer, he has a deal with New Zealand, I think it's a sort of caravanning travel magazine, to drive a motorhome from the north to the south, north of North Island to the south of South Island, I don't know, I guess in 8 weeks, which is about the length of the Tasman series used to be when it had Australia in it as well. But the proviso is he has to go to either a race meeting, motor race meeting, or play golf at least once a week. And he does that from the north to the South Island. That's pretty good. Alistair Corbell's another Kiwi that's been out there traveling the world. He's back in the UK. I think he's back in the UK now. But shout out to him too, because really respect Alistair for what he does in those classic car rallies with his grandma and his Rolls and his Mercs. And just, if you're going to make it in life, as Alistair has with his storage company and a great Formula One career behind him, what a brilliant thing to be doing, those classic car rallies. Another mate of mine, Andy Holden, is a captain at Virgin, and he just sent me a WhatsApp saying that because obviously they've grounded a lot of flights, but he's now doing freight flights, and presumably 747, flying freight on the way to New York. So yeah, I mean, those things happening all the time, and we're all doing different things, aren't we? I've got a question here about what do I think of the the pit lane project to put together, which is an initiative from F1, from Liberty, if you like, to put together the Formula One teams, generally UK-based ones, and see what they can come up with in terms of ventilator technology and advancing that, either modifying existing designs or indeed creating new ones, perhaps with rapid prototyping, things like that. The point being that F1 teams move very, very quickly in terms of manufacture and design. And that's a great idea, I think. Wonderful to see. I would go further, actually, and say that, I mean, I know it's in Liberty's interest to promote Formula One here, and Formula One is the teams that are part of the current package. But I think, actually, looking at it from a broad brush perspective, perhaps 30,000 feet rather than 5,000, I think we should bring in some of the great brains that we've seen in the Formula One pit lane from the past and put them all together. Colin Chapman, of course, no longer with us, but within a week of Ronnie's passing at Monza in '78, had come up with a sketch of a system that would have prevented, in his mind, the fatty embolism in the bloodstream that had actually caused Ronnie's death. And he showed it to Sid Watkins, and Sid looked at it and thought, whoa, that's amazing. What does Colin know about it? But sure enough, and Sid told me this, a couple of years later in the Lancet, was exactly the system that Colin Chapman had proposed. So these guys, these James Allisons, these Adrian Newey's, are brilliant people, well beyond the realm of Formula One. And wouldn't it be great? I mean, I would be very confident to know that Adrian Newey was looking at what we can do with ventilators very quickly to try to get more built in a very efficient way, or James Allison, or any of these guys. And so those obviously are with existing teams. But my point is, what about the John Barnards, the Patrick Heads, the Rory Burns, the Adrian Reynards, all these brains, Frank Durney, lots of very, very good brains out there that could be harnessed with the right sort of management. And who better, actually, than probably Ross Brawn to put all that together the way he put it together at Ferrari. And there was some very Aldo Costa working under Ross, but very good people. Ross is a great manager of brains, and I would love to see some sort of committee, motor racing Formula One committee, which goes beyond, as I say, the realm of just the existing teams, because there are still some very agile minds out there. I mean, if you said to John Barnard, John, let's have a coffee and talk about what you think. Have a look at the current ventilator situation and come up with some ideas of what we could do to help. Ron Dennis is another, could probably get involved. Very, very creative people we have in this world of Formula One. And just because they're no longer actually designing cars right now, it doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't be including them in some sort of deal like this. So, you know, I think that's something that we need to look at. I'm just having a look at the chat here as well. Talking about things that we do. I mean, one of the things that I love doing is looking through old motoring magazines, and you always come across something that you never knew. I do anyway, probably because I'm quite ignorant. But I mean, Rob, this is the Rob Wilson principle of a dictionary or an encyclopedia is definitely better than Wikipedia, because you get to where you want to get to, you've got to pass through several layers of information, and that information usually is quite interesting. And it happened to me the other day with an old 1967 Autosport. I was looking up something specific, but on the way I came across an Italian Monza Formula 3 race quite early in the season. I think it's about May, which was won by, would you believe, and I had no idea he did this, Giancarlo Baghetti. And to put that into context, Giancarlo Baghetti lives in history of Formula One as the only driver ever to have won his first Grand Prix. But he also won 2 Formula One races, non-championship, before he did that at Reims in '61. And then he won a 4th race in '61, right at the end of the year at Vallelunga, when he was in a Porsche. He drove Ferrari, the Centro Sud Ferrari for those other 3. But in the 4th one, he drove a Porsche because they wanted him to win the Italian Drivers' Championship. So he got that, he had another win at Vallelunga. So 4 Formula One wins, including a French Grand Prix in his first year. And then he kind of faded away. He became a works Ferrari driver, but he kind of faded away, didn't do any more winning. But then in '67, he's back in Formula 3, winning a Formula 3 race at Monza. I thought that was amazing. And then to back that up, September '67, a couple of months later, he's back at Monza again in a 3rd Works Lotus 49 alongside Jim Clark and Graham Hill, a drive paid for by the Automobile Club of Monza, I guess. Yeah, I just never knew Baghetti went back to Formula 3. He's got to be the only driver in history to have done something like that, I would guess, to have won 4 Formula 1 races and then gone back to Formula 3 to win again. Having said that, Romain Grosjean, when he fell into a slump, went into GT racing, didn't he? He won a few races in a GT40 and then, Ford GT, and then came back into Formula 1 again. Nothing like the same as Baghetti, but yeah, so, you know, Romain kind of did that. So I thought that was quite interesting. And I love going through these old magazines because there's so much detail then. And I was looking through another 69 Autosport, just rambling on here. Sorry about that, but this is what I kind of wanted to do here because, you know, it's very easy to be lugubrious about everything that's going on, but we have got this motor racing world in which we live, and this is part of my life. So I'm just kind of trying to share what I've been doing and thinking about in the last few. Anyway, 69, I was reading through a 69 magazine, and there was a report of the South African Grand Prix, which was won, of course, by Jackie Stewart, his first outing in the Tyrrell Matra MS80, beautiful car. But I'd forgotten to follow up really on what Mario Andretti did in that race, because just to remind you, his first Formula 1 race, he put the Lotus 49 on the pole, Watkins Glen 68. Didn't win the race, but he was on the pole for his first race. So that was that, massively impressive. But what happened early 69? Well, he drove a Lotus 49 at Kyalami alongside Graham Hill and Jochen Rindt and was lying third in the South African Grand Prix before gearbox went. And so I didn't know that either. And I thought, wow. So Mario, it wasn't a one-off, you know, that he was right on it. And good luck to him. Had a long chat to Mario actually, just not so long ago. He's in good form and really, really full of motor racing and his love of it and things we can improve, things that perhaps shouldn't be the way they are, but nonetheless, Mario Andretti, a complete icon, and just love the man, just brilliant. So what else? The other day, I got to say, this is before isolation, before social distancing came in. It was pouring with rain, and I was outside Imperial College. We go there for some other stuff that we do, and I just saw this guy walking a black Labrador, soaking wet. He was wearing a sort of long raincoat, droopy hat, a bit like Paddington Bear, and was walking along. And I looked at him. I thought, I know him. And I said, Alexander, and he turned around, and sure enough, it was Lord Hesketh. Couldn't believe it. The black Labrador Basil, and he'd been walking Basil around Hyde Park, as he does virtually every day, I think. And Alexander, I don't know if you've seen pictures of him recently, but completely changed man, looks amazing, really, really fit and trim. But much more than that, we had a bit of a chat, and I've got to say, it's very, it's very rare that you come across somebody with a brain as agile as Alexander Hesketh. And I never really appreciated that when he was racing and running Hesketh Racing for that very brief period with James Hunt and winning the Dutch Grand Prix, of course, 75. But I started to chat to him about current Formula One politics and indeed politics in general. This guy is razor sharp, really intelligent. And I just thought it was sad in a way that Formula One hasn't used Lord Hesketh much more over the last 20, 30 years, because what an asset he would have been at a number of different critical points in the history of Formula One. But presumably he was out there on the board of a multitude of different number of companies, and I guess was too busy to pick up the phone to ask if he could do anything in Formula One. But I don't think that was his prerogative. I think in reality, Formula One should have been saying to Lord Hesketh, amazing, you're doing this, you're doing that, you've got connections in the House of Lords, we need to have you as some sort of ambassador. You've got to have an important position in the sport. I think it's a shame that Lord Hesketh wasn't given that. But anyway, that's just my opinion. I think one of the things we have to think about right now is the impact of the coronavirus on motorsport as a whole, not just Formula One, because Formula One will kind of do whatever it's going to do. It won't follow any of the things I've been suggesting for sure. It'll just carry on, it'll do this thing, and then it'll race for whatever period we have at the end of the year, and that'll be it. And the world champion will be defined, I guess, by X number of races, how many races can be squeezed in at that point. But you've got to spare a thought for what's going on in the rest of motorsport. And Trevor Carlin made the point the other day that, for teams like his, and there are plenty of them, F3, F2 particularly, of course, totally dependent on driver sponsorship to make it all happen. Presumably problems now with the sponsorship money coming through to pay for the costs of having built all the cars, new cars particularly, of course, in the case of Euro Formula 3, and people to employ and to keep the companies going. And that's a really big issue. I'm not sure how that's going to be resolved, whether or not race teams are going to fall under trust that various governments of countries might come up with. But it is an issue, and it's something that we need to be aware of. And I guess it comes under the heading of what will motorsport look like when we come out of this at some point in the year. And your guess is as good as mine as to when that'll be. Who knows? But let's just take beginning of September as a possibly relatively logical place in which the whole thing will restart. If August, September, if that's when motor racing is getting back on its feet again, there may be a few teams that will have fallen by the wayside, and indeed there may be quite a lot of Formula One teams that are struggling as well. And if that's the case, is that a bad thing? Motor racing will always continue, and you could argue, I do sometimes, that there's perhaps too much money, or up to the point of the coronavirus, there's perhaps been too much money, too many people, too much stuff going on, too much racing, too many different categories. And if we could just come back to a more manageable, properly rational sport, maybe it won't be such a bad thing after all. I never want to see anybody, of course, lose a job, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of people involved, well, there has been up until now, in motorsport, doing a lot of stuff that is, you kind of wonder what it is they do, really. A lot of, I mean, just to one example, when Bernie Ecclestone was running Formula One, I think, I may be wrong here, but I think the total number of people he had running F1 was about 350, 400, around there. And now you're looking, I think, as I understand it, well over 1,000, if not 2,000 people running Formula One. And that's a lot of people, it's a lot of stuff going on. Things change, things are bigger and better, as they say. But is it better? That's the question we need to ask, I think. I think it's a difficult time. I think we need to be looking at Formula One in terms of making sure we don't come out of this looking any worse than we have. I mean, the Australian Grand Prix shambles was an embarrassment, really, to be a part of that and to go out when the race should have been cancelled. And we had the lockdown in Italy. And anyone with a brain at that point would have known that the Australian Grand Prix was going to be, or should be, cancelled, and that the Italians should be kept at home. But for some reason, they had this thing saying if it was essential work, they could leave. And incredibly, I suppose not incredibly, because it's Ferrari, the Italian government said, yeah, Formula One is essential work. So they all left the country. But amazingly, then the Victorian government, Australian Grand Prix, and Formula One said the race is on, it's all going to happen. And 2 days later, of course, they cancelled it. What a complete mess. And that sort of thing it's going to be a while before we can live that down, I think. And other sports reacted with a very, very precise cut in the middle of, in the case of the golf, in the middle of the Players' Championship thing. They played round one and then just stopped it after round one. They just made a decisive decision. And I just wish that the Australian Grand Prix organisers, not the Australian Grand Prix, I don't know who really to blame here. Nobody wanted to blink first. Nobody wanted to cancel the race, obviously, because of the amounts of money involved. But we had a clear signal. The Italians are in lockdown. And so therefore, the Australian Grand Prix should never have been held under those conditions. And they should never have been an attempt to put on the race. And I think that's something that we need to look at, and definitely to make sure we don't do that again. It's all very well to say that we put the safety and the health of all our fans before everything else, but Australian Grand Prix, not a great thing. Yeah, so I'm just going to have a look here, make sure that my thing here is working. We've got quite a lot of questions coming in now. Sorry, I've been rambling on a bit, but thanks very much for all these. Aman says, hello, Peter. Everyone missing Formula One. Yeah, we are, aren't we? TRE is back. Nice. Thank you very much for that one. How easy, Peter, this is from Matt, do you think it will be for McLaren to convert the current 2020 chassis for the Merc engine? I don't think it'll be that difficult. I mean, we're going to get Scarbs onto one of these shows very soon, and he'll be a much better person to answer that than I. But the engine, don't forget now, is very templated in terms of its dimensions and its weight distribution. Everything about the engine, they basically all look the same, and the packaging is a little bit different. So I don't think it'll be, I mean, the main thing will be the size of the radiators they can run, and whether or not they can run smaller radiators on the... Yeah, we're just having a tech conversation there, saying 4 minutes to go, I think, something like that. But we're just saying that if the Merc can run cooler radiators than smaller radiators than the Renault, then aerodynamically they're going to have to take advantage of that, and that could be quite a big job. It won't be just be a case of smaller inlets. It'll be a whole new aero package. So it kind of depends on the cooling they have. David Joe Klotz, hi Peter, what do you think? Why do you think Hulkenberg is out of a drive? I thought Haas would have replaced Grosjean with him. Do you think his career is over? Totally agree. I'd love to have seen him in a Haas. Why did he get sacked by Williams after getting the pole in the Brazilian Grand Prix? Big Nico Hulkenberg fan. Although I think he's made more mistakes in the last couple of years in odd situations than he did at the beginning of his career, strangely. Ever since he won Le Mans, I think he's slightly different as a driver, but certainly I would have him in the Haas if I was Gene Haas. No question about that. Vape Trip says audio is not synced with the video. Well, my man says that it is, and it must be your internet. I love to blame other people. Sorry about that. We'll try and get it right next time. Every season, Mercedes have tricks to stay on top, but whine about Ferrari. Do they whine about Ferrari? Oh, well, they're part of the protest thing, aren't they? Yeah, but yeah, I mean, actually, I think the big thing here, I said before, is that Racing Point something we should be looking at in terms of having last year's Merc aero package on it? I think that's a lot more worrying. Financial help or rule benefits for the smaller teams, Casper Winding. No, I don't think we should have any financial help, but I think we should do what I suggested and go to some sort of templated chassis that the midfield can either choose to run or not. They can do their own car, but there should be something out there that's a lot cheaper. Also, this is Alex Lamas, Formula One baggage is too big. Large motorhomes, hospitality, totally agree. That comes under the heading of my reducing the carbon footprint thing. I'm actually going to go over half an hour by about 2 minutes just to annoy my team here. I'll tell you why, because I kept trying to scroll to get the questions and it had kind of frozen. So when I went back into the page, I can see all these questions that come up. I'm really sorry if we don't have time to get yours, but it does mean that we'll do another show very quickly. Why are they so secret when you can copy a car like the Racing Point has? Very good point. And why be so secret if you're back of the grid anyway? Who's going to want to copy you? Another point, I think. Raymond Numbara. Hello, Ray. Unfortunately, I can't watch this live. Would you please consider having YouTube save it as a video later? Well, it does that automatically. Can you believe? So after this, go straight to the channel and you will see that the whole thing is up. Warts and all my rubbish as well. Paywall? No, I don't want a paywall. Does that mean paywall for Formula One? Or are we talking about Netflix there? But anyway, it won't be a paywall on my YouTube channel, that's for sure. Gone are the days when you could turn up the track with a trailer. Absolutely. What do you think of Ecclestone's idea of abandoning the 2020 season? Pros and cons? Well, I think we're going to get to the point where we might have to abandon it. I don't think we'll be up and running until August. Let's make that September. And that's Monza, Italy. Are we going to want to go to Italy? Nothing against the Italians, but we want that to be, maybe we do want that to be the first race, actually. But what a great place to have the first race of the championship. But I think they could make the championship as a one-off over how many races can be fitted into the year. Just do it. If it's 5, it's 5. Yeah, should they tear down the paywall? I guess you're talking about TV now, Casper, aren't you? Yeah, for the rest of the season, I think they should. Formula One TV Pro should open up the Formula One archive. There's something happening about that Formula One archive. I'm not allowed to tell you, but I've been really busy on a project involving the Formula One archive over the last 5 months. And I hope you're all going to love it when it appears, but I can't say any more. It's all going to be announced relatively soon. Bring Rob Wilson in soon. Yeah, good old Rob. Spoke to him yesterday. He's doing well. Well, he's not doing well. He's actually thinking of writing a book now because everybody stopped doing days with him, but it'll all come back. But Rob's in good form. Thank you very much, everybody, for asking. The rules say you've got to have 8 Grand Prix to have a championship. That's true, but this is coronavirus here, so maybe they're going to have to change the rules. Everybody else is, so let's do it. Is Formula One too big? Too much stuff going around there? Too complicated? Exactly what I've been saying. It's awesome that you're back with Racing Edge. Thank you very much. And still we're saying the voice is out of sync. Anyway, I guess there's not much we can do about that. Hang on, more here. Miss me walking the starting grid. Wow, thank you very much. Well, I do kind of. Maybe in the future sometime. 8 tracks for the shortened season. Whoa, wow, that would be cool, wouldn't it? I'd go back to Sepang straight away. Sorry about that. Love that circuit. Silverstone, obviously, Monaco, whatever. They got to put the race on there. I don't know. Barcelona, I guess. Definitely Canada. Hungary, great circuit. Where else? Monza for sure. And Brazil. That's probably about it, isn't it? Yeah, lovely championship. Do you think Lewis will easily run away? I actually think the shorter the championship this year, 17:31, the shorter the championship this year, I think the more difficult it is for Lewis. Massive pressure not to have any sort of incident into the first corner, to have a reliable car. I'd hate to be in Lewis's position trying to win that next World Championship, knowing he's only got 5 races in which to do it. Big pressure. And in that situation, I would go for Max Verstappen. Ayrton Simmons, great job. When's the next show? Oh, thank you, Ayrton. Ayrton Simmons, mega driver, doing Euro Formula Open this year when it does start. Remember the name, not difficult to forget, to remember Ayrton, of course, but he's very, very quick. Good guy too. Rob Graham, 8 tracks, 3 continents. Somebody, I think you're all starting to agree with me. Brilliant, let's do that. 8 tracks, 3 continents. And cut down on that carbon footprint. We can't go around the world to all those different things. Is it true Toto Wolff moving to Aston Martin? I don't know. Probably not. I don't know. No opinion about that really. Okay, how about 8 races in France with sprinklers? Yeah, well, they got about 9 configurations there. I think Ricard actually would be one of the circuits we would have in that because they got all those different configurations. Silverstone, and I think you want to have 1 in North America, so you take Austin for sure. Well, that wouldn't be bad, would it? Those 3 for a start, and then have Monaco in there too. You got a nice possible World Championship that doesn't cost anything like as much money and doesn't do anything like the same damage to the environment. Would a championship winner of a shorter season? Wow, so many coming in. I'm going to have to stop, guys. But thank you so much for all these questions. It does mean that we will do another of these shows very, very shortly. And guess what? We can do a split screen. I can get some of my mates in there as well. So thanks for watching. See you soon.